to be activated. So that will be the netiquette from our side, and the recording has started. Wonderful. So we can jump into the topic, and I will hand over to my colleague Carlos Jesus. And oh, sorry, I forgot the agenda. So the agenda for today, very quickly, opening the launch event is what I've just done. We will then have an introduction to the BTR guidance and roadmap tool, which will be done by my colleague Carlos Jesus, which is what I was aiming for. Then we will showcase you the features of the tool and how to use it. This will be done by Mirella Salvatore from the FAO. And then, of course, as mentioned, we will be answering questions that you have. And you can also, if you haven't looked at it, my colleague Alina has posted in the chat the link to the tool where you can download it and have a sneak peek while we are presenting it to you. So now I will hand over to my colleague Carlos, and we're happy to have you here. So let's get this started.
Thank you very much, Marta. So let me just take control for 1 second. Yeah, and welcome everybody also from my side. As Marta was saying, my name is Carlos Jesus, and I also work for the Partnership on Transparency in the Paris Agreement, or PATPA for short. And I'm going to briefly introduce the tool, meaning basically what this is all about. How did we get where we are? And afterwards, Mirella from the FAO will present you with the nitty-gritties of the tool and basically main functionalities and so on. So let's get straight to it. The Biennial Transparency and Reporting Roadmap. Oh, sorry, it's a long name. Let's call it BTR Guidance and Roadmap Tool. That's always easier. It has been a tireless collaborative effort between the FAO and PATPA. It was designed based on the MRV and transparency experiences of the projects that we have, both our institutions have led throughout the years, and our constant exchange with countries, with one main objective, which was to support countries in planning for the preparation of the biennial transparency reports that, as we all know, are due on 31st December 2024. So that's not that close, but not that far in the future. We saw a need for assist countries in kind of this transition. And just as a bit of background, let's talk about that transition in a second. So basically, this is just a framework reminder of where we stand. What you see in front of you is, of course, the current reporting framework under the convention. That's basically national communications and biennial update reports. This is the framework that's in place until BTRs come in place in 2024. And a lot of countries are already and should and are already reporting on both these elements. Starting 2024, though, you have what you have on the right side is the future framework, the BTRs. And as you can see, they are slightly different to the things that have been previously reported. One of the elements, new elements on the one hand side, on the other side, more detailed elements. So that means that the effort is greater than, for example, reporting for a BUR. That means planning is needed. And as I was saying, what you have on the left side is the current system, the current MRV system under the convention. And the thing that you have on the right side is what will be reported under the Paris Agreement. Thing to note, this is just something that nobody should forget. BTRs replace the BURs, but national communications remain in place. This is the context of the legal framework, basically, on where the tool stands. So let's now take a look at what do we need this tool for. The reason we need this tool is basically because we need to ensure that there's a smooth transition from reporting BURs to BTRs. As we said, BTRs are basically, or as the name suggests of the Enhanced Transparency Framework, BTRs are basically an enhanced version of BURs. That means more information, more detailed information. That requires a transition, especially on capacity building and so on, and institutional arrangements that will be required. And hopefully, the sooner you plan, the easier that transition will be. Another objective was to guide the design and setup of the transparency system underpinning the BTR process. That is mostly institutional arrangements and all that implies. And And lastly, to also get an orientation so that countries can get an orientation of the time that doing all this would require. Because of course, it's a lot of things, but maybe nobody has you don't really have the impression of how much time that actually takes. That's precisely what this tool is also meant to do. That's why it's called guidance and roadmap tool. And I will get in a second to that feature. So how does the tool work? It works through 6 main steps they were defined and designed through the experience of the PATPA and the FAO. We will get to that in a second. It includes guidance and recommendations to improve the quality of the process over time. We will also get to that in a second. It guides you in each of the steps. It will guide you through questions posed to check national circumstances and reporting capacity. One thing that I should mention is this tool is not a document. It's not, a Word or a PDF document. It's an Excel-based tool. That means that it works pretty much like an app. And that's why it will make sense in a minute why this third point, why it will ask specific questions to check your national circumstances and reporting capacity. And then lastly, it will provide countries or the user with a country-driven roadmap, sort of a Gantt chart that is built based on the replies that you gave to the national circumstances questions that you had been asked throughout the tool. So just again, the main elements of the tool. On the one hand side, it helps you stock taking. It helps countries map out the current arrangements in the country and what you have done so far. One thing that I should be clear, though, is that this does not replace a proper gap analysis that countries should carry out. It's not an exhaustive stock taking, but it does help you ask the right questions. Then it helps you map the ETF requirements because it guides you in understanding what the new requirements are through the different steps, because you will be asked what your level of preparation is regarding different elements of the BTR. And finally, as we said before, it helps you with a roadmap generation that will provide a summary of the steps and also the indicative period that you will probably need to prepare for that. As you can see on the right-hand side, the second of the image in the middle, the image on top is the menu. The image on the middle are the different steps. And the image on the bottom is an example of an indicative roadmap that you get at the end of the tool. As I said, just to go through very quickly through the steps that this tool contains, the tool is divided in 6 steps. The first one refers to setting the scene and appointing the BTR coordination team. That's basically preparing everything that you need to get started to kick off the process. So getting the political buying and so on. Mirela will carry you through that in a minute. The second step is to take stock of your current MRV arrangements, because of course the ETF builds on existing MRV arrangements. So it is essential that you understand where you stand now. Then it goes to the planning phase, the implementation phase. After the implementation phase, that's where you can click on the roadmap generation. Because until that is where, after the implementation phase, that means that that's the point where you are submitting your BTR. And after the roadmap generation, you get 2 additional steps that seriously, we really recommend you do not skip, which are preparing for the technical expert review and the revision process, and then afterwards the improvement over time. As you saw in the image, we are presenting the BTR process as a cycle. So that means that when you get to the last step, you begin again with the first one. And that's pretty much it regarding the a main introduction to the tool. I think this slide is actually for later. So I will provide the control back to Marta, please, so that Mirela can walk you through the nitty-gritties of the tool.
Okay, thank you very much, Carlos. So we jump to Mirela to see how the tool actually works in practice. So let's find out, and I hand over to Mirela Salvatore from the Food and Agriculture Organization to give you a hands-on insight into the tool. So Mirela, the floor is yours, and I will stop presenting.
Thank you very much, Marta and Carlos. So welcome also from my side. So allow me to share my screen and show you really how we start. So this is the folder that you get once you download the BTR guidance and roadmap tool. And inside you will find an XML where you had to click in order to do it. Before doing that, you have other 3 files. One is the installation instructions that is very useful to see because the Excel work with some macros and maybe some action is required in your computer. The how to use it will provide you some minimum guidance that now for today I will provide you online. So just opening the file, the first things that is going to happen is showing you the 6 steps that we have been discussing. So we start in the process. There is any problem? Okay, so we start, and so we get in the introductory page that is still recommend you to start to prepare for the BTR process, as the 31st of December 2024 is very close. So this is the menu part of the tool. So you can click on the different kind of buttons and you will get more information on the about, the glossary, the resource of the tool, the acknowledgement, the disclaimer, and the how to use file if you lose to have a look beforehand. But let's move very fast on the tool menu side. So as you can see, the tool menu side this is what we call the home page part. And the tool menu has the 6 steps with the icons. You will recognize all of them. So when you will see that, or actually right now, all the steps are disabled, just because you have to go through each one in order to be able then to read it. So when you open the first box, the step button, it will prepare you to understand what is this step, for what is important this step, and what you will see out of that. So just pressing to complete, you are able right now to enter in the detailed part. So in each detailed part, you will get a part where you have the introduction to this specific sub-step, a section on question for the roadmap generation that you needed to fill it in, and I show you shortly how to do that. But don't lose it to scroll down and to provide more guidance on these steps. So there will be several bullet points with action, with something that you should consider, the action to be taken for moving forward these specific steps. And then there is a section that provides you some resources that could help you to address these specific steps. Once you already filled in all the questions, you will be able to click on complete and move forward. So that is the basic elements. You will see here some clickable words that help you to see some specific information on glossary, for example. And you will see that answering to each one of the questions will provide you also a specific suggestion based on your answer. So this is how it looks like the tool, but for the time being, I would like to start showing you which one of the questions. But before doing that, Marta, do you mind to really start with a poll question to all our participants?
Exactly, Mirella. Thank you. And we will do exactly that. And for that, we will use Mentee, which some of you may already know, if not all of you. So I'm going to quickly share the link also on the slides, but also my colleague Alina will be posting the link in the slides. So in the chat, so you can access the Mentee in the chat. And the question that we have for you is, at which stage in the BTR process are you currently? So I'm going to keep the slide up just for a few more moments so that you can access it. You can either scan the QR code, although I'm not sure, I've never done that, so I'm not sure who has done that. Or you can click on the link. You may have to put in a code. I'm not sure. In our trials, some had to put in a code, some didn't. And again, as mentioned, the link is also in the chat. So we want to see where you are at the current stage with your BTR processes on a national level. And I will, in just a few moments, be sharing the results as they are coming in live. just to give this keep this slide up just a moment more for people who may not have clicked on the link yet. So let's give it just a little moment. And I see the results coming in. So please give us your insight, because this is, of course, also very, very interesting for us to see where you are currently standing in this process. Okay, so I hope everyone is accessing the mentee. The link is in the chat, so you can also click on it there, and I will now share the live results as they are coming in, so we can have a little look at what this state is. And we can see, okay, we have 13 people who have voted so far, given their input. And we see that the majority has not started yet. So I guess this event that we're holding today is coming at exactly the right time, and the tool may provide you valuable support and insight. 7 not started yet, 4 are starting, and 3 say that their process is ongoing. Now we see that 8 have not started yet. So there seems to be a focus on that, on not having started yet. So we hope that this event will give you a lot of insight, and hopefully the tool will serve you well. And 2 people are saying, I don't know. So maybe you're not directly involved in the process, or the process hasn't possibly started yet, so you're not aware of it. Who knows? But this is very interesting for us. The mentee link is in the chat. Hopefully, let me repost it. It should be right above your message. Okay, I see Alessandro also posted it, so thank you very much. Right, so let's give this maybe a couple more moments to see if anyone else is going to answer. We can see if this maybe changes the results just a little bit. At this point, we have 17 people that have voted. So if anyone else is still looking to answer, okay, there we see. I don't know. Okay, so seems like not started yet is the main focus here. Yeah, 9 now. Good, then I think I will hand over to Mirella so that she can actually show us with an example how this tool works. And maybe all of the people that have said not started yet, or I don't know, may find this very interesting. So over to you, Mirella.
Thank you so much, Marta. Indeed, I'm really happy that, we are just in time for supporting the country. So right now, at the different of before, you see that everything is blue. It's just that for the sake of this exercise, I just already filled in the full form in order to help you to go through the full process. So let me explain a little bit what we have inside, what you will find. So as we described before, there are several questions. The political buy-in, for example, in these questions, we are trying to understand really if the country already indicated specific dates when they want to start the process. If there is a strong political buy-in, means a political and government commitment to really submit in time the BTR report, the biennial transparency report. And if there is also an established process for the budget allocation, that means that the country already foreseen some specific funds from projects, or more and much better, also if the country already systematized also the funding allocation from their own budget. And I am for sure the identification of a coordination institution. That means that there is already some political strong buy-in in the overall process. So here we are presenting the case of a kind of mid-level case of country where the process is ongoing, and there is some already process and capacity in the country itself in order to prepare for the BTR. Just we look at how it looks like the timeline for a country in this specific situation. So we scroll down and we complete the step, and we move on the second step and sub-step. So here the issues is on assigning the BTR coordination team, and most probably, again, we take stock of what was already happening for the BUR, and we try to understand, okay, if there was already in place a coordination team for the BUR and the national communication, And if this coordination team is going to be part also of the remain in place also for the BTR process. So in these cases, this country was already have this coordination team in place, and they will continue to have. This is a good way to go. So we will suggest that if there was already a coordination team for the BUR and the national communication, it would be much better if you continue to work with the already team, because it's already aware of several steps and several activities and several knowledge that you will need. And here, so that is something that we are thinking to provide you as a consideration. And what is a very important recommended action is that it's important to appoint the coordination team with a clear and legal backed mandate that will carry out efficiently all the action that had to be taken for the completion of the BTR. One very important step is trying to understand, okay, what we are going to fill it in terms of the BTR coordination, the BTR content. So as we said before, the BTR contains several elements. Some of them they are considered mandatory, like for example, the national GHG inventory, like tracking progress in implementing and achieving the NDC, the National Determined Contribution. But there are also some activities that they are considered, some sections that they are considered more, let's say, voluntary, but is requested. Like, for example, the information related to adaptation, including the climate change impacts, the information on support needed and received. And in case that the country is part of the RED Plus, they should be included at the RED Plus Annex. So deciding already also on the content of what they wanted to submit in the BTR, that is also a very important step. So for the choice is only for the non-mandatory part components. So here you will need to choose according to the country, and you can switch on and off in terms of according to your country specific needs. So let's move on after completing this first step of setting the scenes. We are getting in the taking stock section. So as we were describing, as also my colleague was saying, that this taking stock does not prevent you to have performed in the country a specific gap analysis. That had to be done because it helped the country really to understand the actual MRV system and also the full capacity of the country to cover the BTR requirement under the ETF. So in these cases, we move over and the country has a reply that partially is already starting the process. So you will see and make sure that your expert in your team are able to define gaps and resource constraints and eventually prioritize and address such a gap. So that is the suggestion that we provide. So once completed, you can move on. So one of the first questions is to understand what is the institutional arrangement set up in the country. Did you already identify the institution? There are in place some regular coordination meeting because that is very important in order to address later on all the specific needs of the BTR process. So setting up these transparency systems is the basic that make very functioning and really making efficient the preparation of the BTR. So one is very important that we have to remember on institutional arrangement is also understanding if they are in place all the agreements for the data and information sharing. This is important to ensure that all the information are able to arrive punctually and efficiently, and that is a help also to speed up and move forward in the preparation of the BTR. The country replied that only for some of the information, there are already in place some agreement. So that is what maybe is the situation in several countries. So it will be great also that you try and formalize more and more as possible these information sharing agreements. That is fundamental to ensure to be ready to prepare for the BTR. So once the institutional arrangement information are set in, we just move forward and we enter in the more technical component. Like, for example, we try to understand what is the status of the country on the GHG inventory. So the GHG inventory, as we say, the National Greenhouse Gases Inventory, is a mandatory section of the BTR. And what we needed to understand if there is any capacity in the country to perform the National Greenhouse Gases Inventory. So here there is some question in terms of understanding if you have performed just recently, if you are still able to access the data of the previous National Greenhouse Gases Inventory. So here is a problem of ensuring that the data were properly archived and documented. So in this round, you are able already to use it. Otherwise, it's something to think about it for the next phase. There is also the issues of if you retain the capacity to build a national greenhouse gases inventory. So in these cases, the country has partially still the capacity. That means that there will be required some additional capacity building. One important element to remember on national greenhouse gases inventory is that the modalities and procedural guidelines are requesting this, that all countries had to use the 2000 IPCC guidelines for compiling. So now we have to understand, did we already completed the national greenhouse gases inventory using the guidelines? And let's say that this country, for example, partially uses. So there are still some categories or sectors in the greenhouse gases inventory that be used in previous version. So in these cases, that is important because the country or the expert, they will need really to understand how to move and transition to the 2000 IPCC guidelines. What is really important also to ensure that there is in place a quality assurance and quality control procedure. So if you have done already before, that is good because you already have in place all the implementing procedures. In case no, you can even still apply some flexibility. The issues of flexibility is treated in more detail also in the tools. You will see several information underneath that explain where the country could use the flexibility. Please remember that the flexibility require also to provide a written documentation of why you apply for the flexibility, and also provide an indication of where you are going to overcome these specific challenges and when you will be ready to submit the information that are required. So if you have already some knowledge to implement the procedure and if you retain some capacity, those are the questions that they are going to guide you through the process. Another important element for the national greenhouse gases inventory is the uncertainty. So again, here there is a question if you already estimated the uncertainty in the previous submission. So if that you haven't done before, it's good that you take the opportunity to estimate quantitatively and discuss qualitatively the uncertainty of the inventory. That is really important that you have to start doing. If you have done in the past, we ask you if you retain the capacity. So this helps a little bit to understand the status quo of the national greenhouse gases inventory and your capacity of carry out these activities in the future. So scrolling down, we can go back here to the main menu. And now let's see what's happened on tracking NDC progress. We know very well that this is a new component of the BTR process. So we needed really to build our knowledge in how to track the INDC progress. What is important, first of all, is to understand what kind of type of targets you had been putting in the INDC. There is a brief document that describes how we classify the different targets, as you see here. This country, for example, submitted an INDC using the baseline or the business as usual target INDC, and have already defined some progress indicator for all the INDC targets that they are putting forward. So they define partially some of them, so they have some clarity, but still there is something to work out properly. In this section, we also ask a question related to the mitigation measures. So have you reported the mitigation before? If you have not done, maybe this is a good moment to start doing this process, because this is a required component in the BTR. Here there are questions again. For each one of this section, we are going to continue to ask you if you retain the capacity, if you have still the knowledge or accessing to the information. So these are the usual questions that for each of the elements we are going to ask. There is also a question if you are intending to estimate the impact of the estimation of the mitigation measure. In these cases, for example, the country indicates that they are going to use the flexibility, and still underneath there will be some description of what the flexibility will entail. Another section that's for tracking the progress is to indicate really about the projection. Are you going to include the projection and in the of the GHG emissions and removals? So also in these cases, you can indicate yes, or you can apply for the flexibility. The country is indicated that they are going to apply for the flexibility. So let's move forward and see also the other section regarding, for example, the adaptation. Have you submitted an adaptation communication before? Does your country have? So here there is all the knowledge of how much the country already reported on adaptation. So if they have already some knowledge, if they already have some plan and some policies and strategy in the country, and if they have the capacity to monitor the implementation of the NAP, the National Adaptation Plan, if there are policies in the INDC or in general in policies at the country level. So if the information is already put it forward and they have the capacity to report on adaptation. Finally, no, not really finally, but almost at the end, we are talking about the support needed and received. Is the country interested to report in the support needed and received? So they are saying that they have not reported before. So if they don't report it, automatically the question is going to set to null, because for sure they didn't retain any capacity to report on support itself. So finally, the country wants also to have the report on the process on the RED Plus, and they have reported already a technical annex in the previous national communication and BUR. So if they say yes, but the problem is that they did, but maybe with some consultant, ad hoc consultant helping them to produce the annexes. So they don't have the capacity still to prepare the technical annex by themselves. So there is a good opportunity to start to build the capacity on this process. And again, we completed. Once we completed the taking stock, we get into the planning phase. We needed to start to think about it, the human resource that is needed to carry on the activities. So in this country, they have between 1 and 5 full-time staff that are assigned for the BTR compilation. In order to reduce the time for the BTR compilation, what you can do is you can ensure to carry out some parallel activities. Means that if you have several experts with several different kind of knowledge, you can think about it to have somebody working on the national greenhouse gases inventory and other people of the team start working in parallel on the adaptation requirement. How you do this? You just select from the activities here below and you click on the ones that you want to select. If you want to remove one of the activities that you selected, for example, if I'm going to select the mitigation measure and then I say, okay, no, I don't have still the expert, I'm going to deselect by re-clicking in the list. So it's very easy. Now you will see that if you select already an activity in parallel with the first step, this activity will not appear as available for being running in parallel with other activities. So indeed, if we are going to select adaptation right now under the progress indicator, it will tell you that adaptation is already selected to be included already in the national greenhouse gases inventory in other activities. So it's not possible to select with another specific activities. But you can, for example, you can put in parallel the progress indicator with the support needed and received, and so on. So there are some activities already selected that will not be appearing for you to be selected because they are already applied, these activities in parallel. Once you set it up, all this schema of your a human resource and who is working in parallel to what, we can arrive at the point to understand what capacity needs is due to get an understanding of what to be able to compile the BTR. Based on the reply that you provided, you get an understanding of how many months you require to have of capacity building to strengthen the national team and being able to report on the specific elements. As we stated before, on national greenhouse gases inventory, there was not still a full knowledge on the application of the 2006 IPCC guidelines that will require some months of capacity building in order to get the team full and speed. In the same way it was for adaptation, where we say that they didn't have the capacity, not even for the RED Plus annex, where they had to learn how to prepare the technical annexes. This part is just based on this information amount that is based on the experience that the PAPTA and the FAO had on the MRV system. If that doesn't reflect your country needs, your country situation circumstances, you can customize and add more months or less months of capacity building for any kind of the specific activities. So you can fully customize by clicking on yes and indicating your specific months that you want, and then click enter as is indicated here, or replace return, for ensuring that the new months are reflected. For the time being, I'm not going to change anything in order to avoid any specific issue. So actually right now, that is how we move forward on the capacity needs, and we get at the point of the compilation. So based on the compilation, again, based on the reply that you provided so far, it will tell you how long it will take for you to develop and to prepare for any specific of the section of the BTR. So also here, if you think that this situation does not reflect the country specific circumstances, you can identify here and change and customize as you prefer. So as you see here, the total months for the compilation needed is around 46 months. But let's see how it looks like a roadmap right now. Please don't forget that after preparing the different section and different chapter of the BTR, you needed to try to have some time for consolidating the different chapter in just one report. So here you can indicate how long it will take for you. And you needed to consider also that once the document is completed, had to be submitted for official consideration and approval in order to be able to be submitted to the UNFCCC. So here you will have a kind of option between 1 and 6 months. So
Mirela,
yes,
apologies.
we are.
Could we please start wrapping up? Yeah, we have 12 minutes left, and I think there's several questions. So I think it would be great if we can allow at least 10 minutes for that.
Sure. Thank you so much. Sorry, because I didn't see any of the question, but let me show just what is the ideal roadmap for this country based on their reply. So, so you will see here that you are not properly fully aligned, but mostly for just a few months you will be out of the deadline. So you are still pretty good in shape on that. But here is an indication of what you are going to have in terms of capacity building and compilation period. You will see some parallel activities as we described. So you are fully in the capacity of arrive. You need just to speed up slightly some activities. But here there is also a message that we want to give it. Considering in case that you are not able to submit for the deadline, try to consider to focusing first on the mandatory element, and then in order to be sure to firstly submit timely the BTR, and then you can think about it to improve. And that's why it's important also to have a look at the further steps, step 5 and step 6, that provide you also some ideas on how to improve the cycle and make the cycle more fast, and ensuring a little bit that the submission the next time will be on time. So I hope I was able to provide almost all the elements. And so now back to you for the question.
Wonderful, and thank you very much, Mirela, for the insight and the hands-on showing of how this tool works and basically guiding our participants through it with a country example. And yes, we have quite some activity in the chat. I also see that my colleagues have answered some of the questions already. So maybe one question that goes directly, Mirela, to what you were showing with the tool, and this was posted by Julian. It says, does it mean 46.5 months every 2-year cycle, or only for the first BTR? This was in regard to the time frame that then is shown for the BTR process.
The 46 months of compilation is the cases based on what you reply in terms of the capacity that you have in the country. We expect that that is based on the fact that you need still to learn some specific elements. If you maintain, and that is the importance of the sustainability of the process, if you maintain the same team, you maintain the capacity and the knowledge, you ensure the data collection is archived properly and documented of all the information related to the BTR process, BTR report. So you can ensure that in the next round, you can make this process more smooth and require less time. So does that help to answer the question?
Yeah, Julian, if you do want to, yeah, okay, I see. Okay, thank you. And yeah, I see also that Carlos also answered in the chat to this respective question. So I think we have that one covered. There was a lot of activity in the chat, and I do see that some of the questions have been answered. I do see that the topic of NDC tracking came up from several of our participants, and maybe there's one question that hasn't been answered in that much detail. So I want to put it out there for our experts, Mirela, Alessandro, Mario, and Carlos. This is a question. I'm just going to read it out slowly. So it says here, does the tool provide guidance for NDC tracking progress? And then NDC in parentheses, NDC target global tracking, trajectory, NDC mitigation measures, implementation as examples. So maybe you can give a little bit more insight on this, because there was also questions by Natalia on NDC targets. And this seems to be a very, very interesting, very often asked topic. So who wants to start?
Carlos, would you like to reply?
Yeah, happily. So I would say the answer is no, to be honest. This tool it's also, we have to acknowledge the limitations. The tool is not meant to be ultra comprehensive, because that tool would have been a monster. We do direct you to relevant knowledge products or tools where necessary. But regarding entity tracking, the tool will not help you develop your indicators, if that's the question. It does give you an idea of what you should consider, and some recommended actions, but it's not a comprehensive NDC tracking tool. That should be made clear, and we need to acknowledge the limitations of it. That being said, I can anticipate that at PADPA we are working on a knowledge product related to NDC tracking of progress. So we will inform also everybody that was in this launch webinar when the time comes. But again, the reply is this tool in particular does not provide a detailed guidance on tracking of NDC progress. But I also saw that there was another question. Maybe I can reply to it directly, Marta.
Yes, please.
Which was to Natalia. So she was asking me first what target types the tool includes. So I mentioned that we divided in based on literature and on experience, we divided it on 4 different types of questions. So 4 different types of targets: base year target, BAU, trajectory target, non-GHG target, and mitigation actions. The reason we grouped them like that was mainly because of the indicators most likely to be used to track them, and because that sets the relationship with other elements of the BTR, for example, the GHG inventory. And then the question that she posed after that was whether the difference of base year target and mitigation actions was having or not having a quantified target. And basically, the answer is yes. When we're talking about base year target, we're talking about quantified GHG targets that set a target against a base year. Basically, for example, an absolute GHG emission target. When a country says we're going to reduce X amount of CO2 by the year 2030. When we're talking about mitigation actions, it's a country that's only committed to mitigation actions, not necessarily quantified. So say, yeah. And then the non-GHG target is when the metric is expressed in non-GHG terms. You will also, thank you for that, Mirela. There's also a document where you can find in that section, you can click, there's a button that says you can find more information on our classification here. And then it will open that PDF where you can see a bit more of how we classified them for the purposes of the tool. But I think, Natalia, I think I already answered your question. We invite you also to not forget to click on the additional elements, because some of the times they can be quite enlightening to what we mean with the different terms we're using.
Exactly. Sorry, but I saw also a couple questions that they are also really important, maybe to raise something else. So I think that Patricia is asking what is then the difference between the tool and a gap analysis. So actually right now here, in terms of the gap analysis, we are really very superficial. For each element, we are asking just if you retain the technical capacity and if you are able to access the information for the next round. Let's say that if you want to do a proper gap analysis, it requires that you go a little bit more in details. More details, for example, in the GHG inventory, you can go a little bit more in detail on understanding who, what, and how, understanding about the different steps, uncertainty, quality assurance, understanding what kind of process is in place, what kind of structure is in place. for producing the greenhouse gases inventory report. So usually the gap analysis is slightly more complex. We are preparing a gap analysis tool for the GH inventory that can help you to get a little bit more in details, and we will inform you also on these other products to help you out on the gap analysis. I saw also another question where we can seek support if we find any issues using this BTR preparation analysis tool. Okay, so Carlos, allow me to just give it this reply. So actually right now, the tool can seem a little bit complicated. What we are testing in the country is trying to use the tool, bringing on the table the different actors in the country that they are involved in general on the reporting to the United States, and started to use the tool to get a feeling how long it could take, and started to answer a few questions. Not necessarily they have the full answer, the proper answer for all questions, but it's very important to start doing and get an idea of the timeline. You can always go back and refine your question and getting then the more ideal picture of the tool. We offer a service of support. We can go through together if the country requires. So you can send an email. We will provide you the contacts and also in the tools. If you send a request, we can provide also a technical support in the preparation of the analysis tool. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you very much, Carlos and Mirella, for the answers that you've provided. I've put in the chat actually the contact information for both Carlos and Mirella. So dear participants, if you want to contact them, the information is in the chat. Also, I can answer a question that came regarding access to the recordings. And yes, we will be publishing these recordings. We have a session today, so the one that you're in that is being recorded, and we have a session tomorrow with the new participants that is also going to be recorded. And both of these will be made available to all of the participants of today and tomorrow, so that you can sit down and look into these recordings again, or for the one tomorrow, if you may not be joining, then look at that one too. If you have any questions or any new insight that you then want to see, you can do it there. And again, our contact information is in the chat, and we also be shared in a follow-up email with all of you. So any questions that you have or that may arise in the coming days, weeks, or when you're looking at the tool and trying to use it, trying to create your own Gantt chart, you can always contact my colleagues that you see on the screen. Mirella and Carlos are heading this tool. So in any case, any questions that you may have, please don't hesitate to contact us, because of course for us it's the aim that this tool is used, that it's useful, and that it's helpful for all of you. And considering, remembering the poll that we had with many saying, well, the process hasn't started yet, but it is going to be starting. And so for this is the tool. This is where we want the tool to be useful. And I see that Carlos has also posted in response to Patricia a GIZ tool that can help conduct a gap analysis. So this also has some extra information. And I think we are reaching our end of this event. I don't see any more questions, and we're right on time. So thank you very much to everyone who joined today, who took time out of their busy calendars to join us, and for the interest in this tool. We're very grateful. We appreciate your participation today, all of the questions that came, maybe all of the questions that will come when you actually sit down and take a look at the tool. And so without further ado, thank you very much from PATPA side and also from FAO side, if I may say so and speak for our FAO colleagues. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of the day, and keep an eye out for the follow-up email that will be reaching you with information, with access to the tool. So keep an eye on your inbox. So thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.